What's up, everybody? It's your boy Bill Forster coming to you on a Wednesday. I hope everybody's having a great Wednesday. This is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host. I got my co-host in the building, Mr. Kevin Branzetti. What's up, Kevin? How are you today?
All right, Bill. I'm doing well. I got no complaints.
You were telling us, you were telling us earlier. What'd you do yesterday? You went hiking or something like that?
No news, 24 hours.
Okay.
Watched completely nothing yesterday. Didn't turn on a TV till this morning, and only for a few minutes to realize nobody knows what the answer is, and I shut it back off.
Right. And with that being said, last night I invited these two wonderful people back with me. They helped Malika and I do the election special. So we were just having such great conversation. So I wanted to invite these two back. At the top, I'll start with the ladies first. Miss Carla Anderson. Hi, Carla. How are you today?
I am great. I am on top of the world right now.
Okay, well, we're gonna find out why. We'll get back to that. And on to my top right of my screen, where the logo is, Mr. Booker Haas. How are you, sir? How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Had a good day all day, so I'm doing fantastic.
Absolutely. And this is a segment usually Kevin and I we do talk about everything. A lot of it is primed for law enforcement, but because it's real talk, we do talk about everything, like I said. So I ask everybody out there that are chiming in, if you like it, share it, subscribe to it. It's on YouTube. You can hit the button under my name, Kevin's name, and you can just share it, and that's what we do. I'm going to start off with, of course, we all know there was an election yesterday. I think, yesterday's show, we talked about anxiety and things of that magnitude and how we felt. So today, Kevin, you said something that was good. I mean, like, I applaud you that you really didn't want to, was it planned not to engage in politics, or was it just that you just, this was one of your stay away from social media days?
Oh no, that was planned. It was completely intentional yesterday. It's the day of the election. There's no changing anything, right?
Yep.
You can't talk about it. You can't scream about it. You can't convince people to change their minds. You can't do anything.
Right.
So except for stare at a TV and watch pundits just, give you craziness and drive your anxiety level through the roof.
Yeah, and then we definitely talked.
I sat on a mountaintop.
Oh, where'd you go climbing at?
What's the name of the mountain? Breakneck Ridge in Cold Springs, New York.
Okay. All right. Carla, you said you're feeling on top of the world today. Well, for everybody, if you've been under a rock or on Mars or someplace, right now, projected is that Joe Biden has 253 electoral votes and Trump has 213. Biden really only needs, I think, 2 more cities or states, and he'll be the projected winner. With that being said, the president has already said, he's going to contest this election and things of that magnitude. Kevin, what do you feel about that?
Well, I think we all knew this was going to be contested no matter who won. Right. There was no doubt in my mind. That's why I didn't watch yesterday. This was going to be contested. We knew there was going to be a few battleground states, and there's going to be arguments, and they're going to sit here and we're going to tear apart vote by vote in a couple of states, and it's going to take a few weeks. Do I think it will change much? Probably not. You know, but I expected it from either candidate's camp. To me, this was a lock.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Booker?
And what was the question again? Do I
Well,
think?
go ahead. Well,
No,
basically,
go
I was
ahead.
just asking, huh?
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I said basically I was just asking Kevin, what did he think about the whole protesting of the president said he's going to protest already.
Yeah.
Wisconsin, he's already going to protest. What do you think about him protesting? Going to protest and not. I'm not going to say not be a graceful defeat if he loses, but the
Mm-hmm.
fact that he will already start. I mean, he already said that he was trying to insinuate that there was kind of some kind of tampering already. I think I got a message that the United Postal supposedly is missing, or something happened with a bunch of the votes. I have to look at it and see exactly what it is. But I mean, what do you
Yes.
just think about what he's going to try to do in a situation?
Gotcha. I kind of expected it. That's kind of his nature to
Mm-hmm.
kind of cry foul about things.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not. I kind of knew this would occur. So how long this will play out, I really don't know. I think that's that's kind of the mystery. You know, how long will this play out if Biden is the winner? If he comes through and he gets all of those electoral votes that he needs. But I'm not surprised by the actions, because that's kind of how his administration has been. He's kind of conflictual that way. It's kind of ironic though, because I think about Russia, or the idea of Russia tampering in the election with Hillary, and the things that should have probably taken place during that time that didn't, and now he's kind of on the losing end, and we kind of see all the legal play starting to happen. So I kind of expected it. I just hope that it's not this month-long journey with a bunch of legal activity.
Right. Just drawn out. Carla, what's your take?
Yeah.
So I said that I feel on top of the world. I woke up this morning, feeling good, feeling positive. And I think the reason why I feel on top of the world is I'm being cautiously optimistic as to the outcome of this, because of course I want Biden to win. But when I woke up this morning, I at least didn't have that churning ball of dread in my stomach. I still know, and I still recognize that it's not a lock at all. It's still go either way. Right now, they're favoring that Biden will win what he needs to win, and therefore win the presidency. But I knew, just like Booker was saying, I knew, and Kevin, I knew that there was going to be this long drawn out thing, because after the votes get counted, then the legal stuff starts. And we all knew that there were going to be legal challenges. And so, yes, we're going to have to sit through that stuff. But because I'm in Philadelphia, what I'll say is, because Pennsylvania, this is like the second go round for Pennsylvania being in the spotlight with the votes. I think that Pennsylvania has made sure that all their ducks are in order. And they have made sure, because Pennsylvania knew they were going to be a target. They were already targeted with legal action before Election Day. And they knew they were going to be targeted with legal action after Election Day, because of the way that they decided to do the mail-in votes. So I'm confident that Pennsylvania is doing everything by the book. And so I feel like Trump is probably definitely going to have some kind of legal action against Pennsylvania, but I don't think he's going to be successful, because I think those people who are in the know in Pennsylvania, and it's part of their jobs, they made sure that they were doing everything by the book and on the up and up.
Right.
So I feel good. I feel good because I feel like the candidate that I wanted to win is going to win, and that we have taken back the soul of our country, and we are going to get back to some kind of normalized operations so that the country can move forward with what it needs to do with policy and everything else. So
Awesome. I appreciate that. Kevin, I'm going to come to you, but I just want to shout out everybody that's watching. This is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Foster, with my co-host, Kevin Branzetti, and we have our esteemed panel. Thank you for coming in from North Carolina and coming in out of Philadelphia. We appreciate you. I just want to shout out everybody who's watching. Mark, Annette, Sharon, Ruthie, Sean. I see you, Melvin. What's going on? Lou. Gerald Evans, former 2-8 brother, Marquetta, Ken Smoltz was in the building. Hello, Eunice. Earl, I see you, Earl. What's going on? Hector, NYPD, what's up, Steph? Of course, good brother Colin in the building. Lynette. So Lynette said the only regret I have about PA is that they didn't count the mail-in votes first. But that's true,
yes, but legally, they had already decided how they were going to do that. And so, we just have to, follow, the legal procedures that were set up in place, which is that the mail-in votes couldn't be counted until election day.
Right.
Everybody knows it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while to count.
Absolutely. And then Annette said just had a press conference with Georgia, Fulton County. I feel that those people counting votes claiming hope to be done by midnight. Well, yeah, I mean, let me just ask you, Kevin. I'm gonna come to you. I know I didn't ask you who you voted for. If you want to tell us, you can. You don't have to. I know you're a Republican, and that's cool. And we've always discussed that. So that's neither here nor there. But my question to you is, no matter who wins, right? It's projected that, and this is off of what Carla had just said about getting back to some kind of normalcy. What would you think the president, whomever the future president would be, either the 45 Trump or Biden? What do you think they should do to try to piece the country back together?
Yeah.
Wow.
Take your time, Kevin.
I would be happy with, I don't see Trump doing it, right? So I'll go with if Biden wins. I would be happy with Biden polling in the top 3 Republican congressmen, a couple of top senators as well, and have a sit down with them and just talk about, let's pick 3 to 5, major issues and start, listening to each other's side. If somebody starts listening to the other side, I'm a happy man.
Right.
I feel like it's been, forget about it, so long since anybody listened to the other side. It's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'd like to see. And do I expect it? No.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see it.
So you don't think Biden would try that?
I don't know. Look, it would impress the hell out of me.
Okay. Good.
I know the other guy won't.
Right. We know that.
So I'm not even giving him the benefit of the doubt. It would give me hope, right? This was an election I did not like. From the primary, I won a Bloomberg, right? Right. I've been very open about that.
Yes. Absolutely.
This is. I look forward to having an election again where I'm happy with somebody, and I think they're just a good person who's doing it for the right reason.
I agree.
I don't think Biden's a bad guy. I got some issues with him, but
I agree. I got you.
He's not somebody that makes me go, oh, it's Joe. Hey.
Got you. Carla, what do you think? would you think the president elect would do? What would you think something that he should do to put the country back together in a peaceful manner, as you said, as you ended?
Yep. Well, I agree with Kevin that if it does happen to be Trump, then it's actually not going to be more of the same. It's going to be worse than what we've seen in the last 4 years, because he won't feel like he has anything to hold him back. He won't be, have people, telling him in one ear, well, you got an election coming up, so we got to do certain things. He's just going to run with, whatever he's going to run with.
Right,
So
right.
I do, again, I still, hope that Biden, cements the presidency, because whatever Biden does, I think it's going, and I'm not necessarily talking about Democrats, but I think whatever Biden does, it's going to be good for the country.
Right, right.
I believe him when he says that he's going to be president of the United States, not president of the blue states.
Right.
So, of course, just like in the past, there's a reason why people are, let's not even talk about Democrats and Republicans. There's a reason why people are more liberal in their views and values, and there are people that are more conservative in their views and values. And because of those views and values, then they're for different things as far as government is concerned. I respect that. I respect that you have that opinion. Now, when you're bringing in stuff like racism and all that, that's to me is a whole nother animal. But just talking about policies that have to do with people who, like to have the government have more of a hand in climate change and the environment policies and things like that, versus people who don't want the government to have a hand in that. That's a difference of opinion that might be skewed more liberal, more conservative. I understand all of that. But and to me personally, I think that Biden will make the good faith effort to try to get both sides in the room and get people talking. Personally, I think Republicans, some in the Senate, like I'm not even talking about Republicans that are, the citizens out there in the country. I'm talking about Republicans in the Senate specifically. I feel as if they've totally lost their way because they were either afraid of Trump or just wanted to ride the coattails of Trump because they knew he was just going to be this radical person that was just going to try to do all these things. But I think that if the Trump era is over, I think some of those Republicans will find themselves again. And I think they'll come back to their sanity and they will actually,
Awesome. Did you freeze? I think she froze. Anyway, I'm going to come to you, Booker. Go ahead. What do you think?
Start to act in a way.
Hold on, Carla, you froze, so I went to Booker. Go ahead.
Oh, that's fine. I was probably being too long with it anyway.
I think that Biden possesses the ability to do it. Just looking at how him and John McCain were able to agree to disagree, and that history that he has in there, I think he can do it. I think he needs Republicans, and I like what Carla said about those in the Senate who, like Lindsey Graham, they kind of changed when Trump got in there. I mean, they really changed. And if they can get back to the Republicans that they were, and like Carla said, agree to disagree. You have the things that you're passionate about, and then being able to come together. I think they'll have a president who will listen and who will be able to negotiate with them. And I think if you can get back to that kind of normalcy, I think you'll see the United States of America getting back to normalcy. Right now, I think we're in a gridlock, and you kind of see that just in the election. The way things went today, you're looking at states that are really kind of just locked in there. And I think that, like Kevin said, Trump is not the guy to do that. I think we're just going to have more gridlock. You're going to have more frustration. You're going to have more uprisings. I think with Biden, I think he's got a task on his hands. And I think you have a lot of people with issues that even if Biden wins, they need them heard. They need those issues heard. They need solutions, and they want to see results. So if he gets in a situation where people are not going to work with him, this will we'll kind of see a ripple effect that's kind of flowing in through the next 4 years, and that's not something I think anybody wants.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, also too, a lot of Senate seats are up for grab, and we're going to say the blue. They didn't really capture the bull by the horns per se. Lynette said, I say that because it was the understanding that most Republicans go to the polls and most Democrats requested ballots. By counting the election day ballots first, it gives the impression that 45 won. Let's say it gives 45 won. Hold on. 45 team now knows that once the mail-in ballots get counted, it's going to turn towards Biden. So now 45 is claiming fraud. I hope folks don't fall for the okie doke. 45 has been laying the groundwork for months to make his followers believe that there is voter fraud. Yeah, you're definitely right. What's up, Billy Paula, former narco ranger in the building? What's happening? I see you, Lewis. Like I said, I got this text that said the U.S. Postal Service failed to deliver 27% of the mail-in ballots in South Florida, reports. The Postmaster General, he I don't even know what to say about this dude. Like, he's unbelievable. Kev, me personally, I want to see the country get back to us people liking each other again. I think I'm kind of like piggybacking off of what all three of you have said. We started disliking each other, like it, and then it turned into like it, not just ethnicities, but then it started turning into colors. Like you could be black and just like another black person because they were voting Republican and you were voting Democrat. And like I said, yeah, like I didn't see the president like doing anything to like they asked a reporter or if it wasn't yesterday or today, they asked him, they said, well, Mr. President, if you win, what are you going to do? What would be something what would you hope for? He says, oh yeah, well, we need peace and stuff. But he's like, I think we ran a good campaign, but you reporters, y'all don't give me a fair chance. Like already, like it's just the person he is. He can't even just be nice. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? It's just like, dog, shut up. You know what I'm saying? Please just like be easy. And I think that's a big thing for the reason why Biden won. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people, he was just more presidential. I see some people coming in. Oh, shout out to my man DJ Ace Evening to the room. Biden Harris ticket doesn't excite the base, but the need to get Trump out and memes and the deal exactly with the cleanup. Absolutely. Lynette said, I didn't have the type of confidence. This country will never return to normal. Pandora's box has been opened. Racists cannot conveniently go back into the closet. Let me ask you a question on that. Shout out to DJ Ace, my brother. What's going on? It's always good to see you, man. Definitely, he didn't excite anything, but I agree with you. But let me talk about, and that said, I don't understand why all states are on the same page for county mail-ins. You said are on the same page. I don't know. I thought, what do you mean? They are on the same page, aren't they, or they're not? Let's talk about what Lynette said. The fact that there has been so much divisiveness amongst people now. Do you think we can heal? Like that's a good point, because I'm sure like Kevin and I know there's some coworkers that diehard Republicans, that they've said a lot of nasty things. You know, not just maybe the fact that they worked with Kevin and I, but I'm just talking about our former coworkers in NYPD. But there's former people that have just people from all sides have just said a lot of nasty things. You know, I mean, I've I've definitely let it be known that I wasn't a Trump supporter. You know, I've posted a lot of stuff. You know, so I say that, and
I never noticed that.
so I'll start with you, Booker, and then I'll go to Carla, and then I'll go to Kevin. Um,
I,
do you think we can ever really get back to a peaceful place? I know what we
I
want to
do.
do, but okay, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I do. I think we can. You know, I've worked in different industries, and there were I had Republican co-workers, I had Democratic co-workers, and every election you kind of felt a little bit of tension in the office. People wanting their person to win, and then after the election, we got back to normal. We got back to doing what we were doing, but this was one time that it didn't happen anywhere. It was like after the election in 2016, it was like it was on, and we've been nonstop ever since. So I believe that I believe love can win. Love is greater than hate in the end, but I think that the healing has to begin, and I think people have to want that healing. I think we have to understand that people see things differently. If you talk about gun control, people see gun control differently. There are people who just enjoy shooting guns. There are people who want guns for protection. So the issues are always going to be different from one person to the next. But this intense hatred that we got with this administration, it's just very unsettling. And so it's going to take a while. Even now, you can see the after effects, that are taking place in different cities where people are marching, and there's tension in certain towns and cities. But I think that if it trickled down, then the care has to trickle down. And I think that Biden has set himself to start that trickling process. And then I think it's got to move across. It's got to move from me to you, from me to Kevin, so that so that we can begin to see that normalcy. The one thing that Trump did, and he knew how to start a fire. He knew how to start a fire. He knew how to use divisiveness. He used whatever tools to create that divisiveness. If it was racism, if it was religion, he didn't really care. And those are all subjects that cut to the core of people. And so I think that if someone at the top, if Biden actually is in there, and he understands that we have to have care for one another, I think you'll start to see it. I don't think it's going to be fast. I don't think it's going to be like in January after his speech. I think it's going to be a process, because you've got different Trump supporters. You got different kinds of Trump supporters. Like, I think you have people who supported Trump that are good Republicans at heart, and they were hoping that he would do a lot of the things that they're passionate about. But then you've got Trumpers. That's a different type of person. So it's going to take some time, but we can get there.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you.
optimistic.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, before everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host, Kevin Branzetti. We have Carla Anderson. We have Booker Haas in the building, just giving their insight on. Right now, we're just talking about how can we no matter who becomes the president, how can we bring peace? Definitely, I'm just going to read out to some people. Shout out to everybody that's chiming in. Ace, I'm gonna have to get you in here, man. You said exactly. You said Trump has no desire to unite the masses. Marquetta said, I believe we can heal, but it's not going to be overnight change. Exactly. Miss Penny's in the house. What's going on? Former 2-8. Shout out to you. Michelle Betha said, Black people in this land have to be on their guard. And that's something too that we could talk about too. I mean, people feel like there still might be unrest and the Civil War might be coming. Lynette said it's going to be hard to heal when racists such as Mitch McConnell and yes, men like Lindsey Graham were reelected. That's something too. What's up, Steph? Steph said Trump has now filed a suit in Missouri. This is insanity. And he also filed a lawsuit in PA and Georgia already. And supposedly he is winning by a small margin in both of those places. And he's already said, thank you, Ace. I appreciate you. You know, we're going to maybe next Monday, if you want to, you come and chop it up with me, man. I'll have you on the show, man. Let them know that, show them that knowledge. I love you, brother. Marquetta said, I believe 45 set black people back some years, so we will not see change for a while. Stephanie said, yeah, this is just crazy. It is crazy. Kev, just talking about that, there's so much tension between law enforcement and the community. I feel the president hasn't done anything to stifle that. What would you do if you're the president, or what would you do if you had the new president here, Biden, or you could talk to Trump again? What would you tell them? What would you be the things that you would tell them, like how to bring some peace and harmony for police to be liked again by the community, and the community to like the police again?
Well, it starts with the simplest thing, again, talking. Right. You got to bring both sides in the room, and you got to talk about some issues. And some issues, are going to get a little hairy and a little dicey, and we're going to, and people's feelings are going to get hurt. But we need to talk a little. I still think everything goes back to we've stopped communicating with each other. We stopped, right. We are the police. We back the police. We are the community. We back the community. BS.
Right.
Right. I don't want to take a side. My side is I want peace and safety for all.
Yeah.
So would I like to see somebody bring people in and we start talking? When we've talked about this, Bill, I'd like to see some national standards with police.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We have thousands of police departments in this country, thousands. Yep. And every one is its own kingdom, tiny little kingdom. And they do things the way they do things. And some people think it's 2020, and some police departments think it's 1970. And they're a little confused, right? But we need a national standard. But we also need to, educate, I think, the public on some police issues as well. We've talked about a lot of them on here, where people just didn't realize, like simple things like tactics. I have my hand on my gun for every car stop. It's not because I pulled Booker over. It's because I pulled everybody over. I have my hand on my gun.
Right.
So there's certain things that we can educate, but it's talking and it's educating. Is my short answer and a long answer.
No. Well, you're the co-host, so you got time, baby. You can talk what you say. Booker, comment on of course the question at hand. But what did you think about what Kevin said about talking and communication and enlightening people on both sides of the track?
I think that's incredibly important. After the incident with George Floyd, my confidence in law enforcement was really down. I mean, it really waned. It was just down. I think the non-communication is a huge problem. I think that gap is so wide that no one hears what the other side is saying, and that gulf is extremely dangerous, because we need to be able to communicate to understand. I remember I was probably about 14 or 15. My brother and I, we were living in West Virginia at the time, and we were coming back from the store. My mother, she was in the hospital. She was having surgery, and we were coming back from the store. I didn't have a license to drive at the time. He was driving, and a police officer pulled us over. We were probably about maybe 2-3 miles from our home coming back. He pulled us over. Don't really know why he stopped us. We weren't speeding or anything, but he pulled us over, and when he got out, he unsnapped his gun, and I recognized that just through the windshield. I mean, through the side view mirror. And he asked us where we were going. We told him where we were going, what we were doing. You know, I had my hands in my lap. I was about 15. My brother, he was older, so he was driving. He had his license. And then he let us go. Now, you know, I was aware that that we hadn't done anything, and I couldn't understand why he stopped us outside of the fact that perhaps he may have been looking for someone. So, but we weren't harmed. You know, nothing happened to us at that moment. But I did recognize, you know, that there was a bit of discomfort, and I wouldn't call it an injustice, but it was a profiling that later, of course, now I'm older, I understand what that is. So I think that if communication, if we have, and I mean deep communication, we have to have deep communication with the police department and the community, so that I don't see the police as an enemy, because right now I think that is the perspective. I think you know I'm 56, and I've even thought today, you know what, I'm not calling the police. I'm just not going to call the police. So the fact that that's getting in my mind tells me that there's something missing, because I'm not seeing the police as I need to see them. So that whole image has to be changed for the community. And I'll be the first to tell you that I've got friends who are police officers. I grew up with a really good friend of mine. His mom was a police officer, became a detective and then a chief of police. So, but my image has changed, and I'm not understanding why that image has changed over the years. And I think it's really communication. That gap is getting too wide.
Thank you. Let me just read some what Lynette said. Police overall will not change until the good cops start outing the bad cops. Until that blue code is torn down, we're not going to see any changes. Once this happens, perhaps you'll probably have more people from the community to be police officers to police their own communities. We'll talk about that. Let me write that down about policing their own communities, how people might feel about that. Michelle said, this was my first time voting in this country, and I have never felt such unease in a voting environment in my life. It is preposterous. You're right about that. So, Carla, what do you think? You know, I mean, what's your take on certain things in regards to what would be a good communicating with, you know, law enforcement, people of color, just people in general? I mean, you know, I think one thing, as for me to be an African American man and understanding both sides of what people of color have experienced, just being pulled over. And like you said, Booker, sometimes just being John Q. Public and knowing that you just John Q. Public, and then you get pulled over and you're like, well, wait, wow, like, why'd you pull me over? And then sometimes, you know, when the officer pulls you over and he'll give you an excuse or explanation, I'll say, and you're like, come on, you say to yourself, you may not really want to escalate this, but you'll say to yourself,
Yes.
yo, you didn't pull me over only because I was black. You know what I'm saying? So I understand that. I understand that mentality. You know, like when Kevin was saying about, you know, doing a car stop. Anybody that's worked in law enforcement knows the car stop is probably one of the most dangerous things that you could ever do. So for an officer to not be at his heightened of security, it's shame on him. You understand what I'm saying? But the bottom line is, it's one thing to be pulled over. It's another thing. See, I mean, like, you know, we people, and I'm coming to you, Carla, I'm sorry, but, you know, people have to understand too, when an officer pulls you over, he doesn't know what you're going to do. Only you know what you're going to do. But the bottom line is, it's a whole different, not now, anybody can be a criminal, and anybody can commit a crime, anybody can have a gun. But in a layman's mind, you're not going to think, oh, if he pulled over a 67-year-old woman, why does he have his gun on his hand? You know what I'm saying? You're like, come on, dog. Like, really? You know what I'm saying? Like, you might feel like he's,
Yeah.
exaggerating something. But then if you pull
Mhm.
over a 67-year-old woman or elderly woman who's not of African descent, you may not see that. You understand what I'm trying to say? So it's always a whole different
Yeah.
mentality.
Yeah.
But Carla, you can chime in and just say, basically, what would you feel? How could the
Okay,
police?
so before I even comment on, I know we've already kind of veered off into, law enforcement issues and things like that, but I actually want to take it back like 15 minutes ago, when I really wanted to comment on the question of, how are we going to go forward, and what's the kind of environment with, your fellow coworkers and, friends and things like
Mhm.
that. And what I wanted to say about that is, I think that one of the things that was, and this also will tie into the conversation we're about to open up about, law enforcement in the communities. But what I think was so shocking initially for so many people back in 2016, when all of this started popping off and coming off getting off the ground, and we realized, oh my God, this guy is going to actually win the presidency. I think that a lot of people, and I'm not saying there weren't people that were like, yep, I saw this coming, but I think a lot of people were actually surprised at the such a quick rise in overt racism. And I think that people, including myself, and maybe because I'm the eternal optimist, but I think myself, along with other people, thought that we were farther along as a country in fighting racism and recognizing that there was racism and the issues that were a product of racism and the things that we needed to keep fighting for because of racism. And I think it was a shock to a lot of people that I feel like we really didn't come that far from the 60s and the 70s. I mean, I think it was a shock to realize that so much was obviously underground, just kind of laying dormant. And, the most successful thing that Trump did was to, really promote racism and to start pitting races and ethnicities against each other.
Carla,
And
hold that thought right there.
you
Kevin,
want
what
me
do
to
you
hold
think?
that thought again?
Yes, I do. I want you to hold your thought. Kevin, what do you think about that? What she was saying?
I didn't even finish my thought.
Wait,
Okay.
Carla, I got this, Carla. I got you, Carla. Go ahead. Good. I'm coming back. Carla, I just want to ask. I want his opinion on it, and then I want to come right back to you. I want you to finish your thought. Go ahead.
Was there a rise in racism or a rise in visible racism is kind of
Right.
the question for me. I don't know. Right. Like there's no, I could tell you if there's a rise in taxes. I could tell you if there's a decrease in taxes. That's a very physical, visible number. But a rise and fall of racism is a tough measure. Did I see a rise of it? Yeah, there is. It is my answer in the end. But was there a rise of extremists? Yeah, I've seen a rise of an extremist. That's what I do for a living, right? Like my job is to go out and find violent extremists. That's been my job in law enforcement for well over a decade. And 15 years ago, it was all about Al Qaeda, and as the course of time changed, it became the neo-Nazi and your Antifa, style people over the last couple of years. So the rise of left and right extremists to me has gone through the roof, right? But I think it was bubbling and starting before Obama. I know, like I've talked to you about this, Bill. Like, my mother leans very hard left. She still hasn't gotten over Bush beating Gore and the hanging chads of Florida, right? Like, and that argument, like, it's still like a very painful, thing. It's a tough time. It really is. It is tough to watch. It is tough to be a part of this. It is hard. I listen to my friends on both sides scream and yell about the extremists on the other side, but they're not looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
You know, and until we look in the mirror and we're willing to say we got a problem going both ways with people, you know, extremists are just extremists to me. I don't care which side you sit on.
Okay.
You're part of the problem. And like I said, I'm waiting for those leaders. We've talked about this a lot, Bill. I'm waiting for our public leaders who will be the ones to say, you know, let's sit down and talk. I threw it at you the last time I was on 2 weeks ago. The race in Utah with the two guys running for governor, they had an ad together on TV talking about unity. You know, I don't care if he wins or if I win. We just want the people of Utah to be united under one governor. And I thought that was spectacular.
Yeah.
I would vote for either one of them as president. And all I know with them is that ad, nothing more. And I vote for either one of them as president.
That's what's up. That's what's up. So go ahead, back to you, Carla. I just wanted to get Kevin's insight on that because of. Go ahead.
And actually, I appreciate those comments, Kevin, and I totally understand where you're coming from talking about extremists. But what I'm talking about is not about extremism. I'm not talking about far left. I'm not talking about far right. What I'm talking about is the environment and the culture that people of color, and I'll specifically talk about Black people since I am a Black person, but what we have had to live with, whether it's in our personal lives, whether it's in our work environments, but what we have had to live with over the decades, and how I thought it was getting better from what was experienced in the 60s and the 70s. And what Trump revealed is that there is a hardcore underlayer of this racism. And of course, there's the systemic racism, right? That's something that's never gone away. But I'm talking about individual people with overt racist views that came out of the woodwork and had no problems all of a sudden with being public about this viewpoint. And it wasn't just the election that made these people this way. These people, they've been your coworker, your next door neighbor, your, you know, the clerk at the grocery store that you always chatted with for a little bit. And then they all of a sudden felt emboldened to really show their true colors. And so, you know, these last 4 years have been extra traumatizing, I feel, because of course the people who are in these official capacities, along with, and I'm talking about including the president, were openly espousing and encouraging these racist views from people. So we've always had to deal with the occasional, you know, whatever incident that happens. You know, you're pulled over for no reason in a car. You go into a store and you're followed around the store by the security guard. Those kinds of things. But to have it in your face day in and day out for 4 years, that's traumatizing.
No, you're right. You're right. You're right about it. I totally agree with you. And you know what's so funny? I'm gonna let you finish. But the one thing too, and I think that's why my opening comments was, how can we like bring some peace and unity? Because the bottom line is, I think everybody is tight. You know what I'm saying? And even somebody like maybe Kevin, who is as peaceful as he wants to be, he has to be on alert, but just because somebody might view him as just as a white man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which is, and then I'm going to be on alert, because if I go around the wrong person and they say something crazy about some Trump stuff or Pence stuff, then I'm going to be on alert. And, you know, vice versa for you as a female, and Booker, you know what I'm saying, would say he's walking out with his family. So it is really the problem at hand. Like you said, I mean, everything has just come to roosters are coming home right now, or hopefully we can get rid of them. Michelle said racism is embedded in the fabric of this country, and as a professional nurse, I've been called the help. Wow. Okay, that's deep.
Right.
Lynette said, unfortunately, the media elected the president. Trump was a celebrity, and these networks were clamoring, fighting for him to be on their show. All the racist stuff he was saying, nobody was holding. Hold on, let me see. I'm sorry. I left it because it was more. So hold on. Nobody was holding his feet to the fire. They didn't ask him about the issues. Nothing. I think it's so phony now how the media is all mad about the stuff he has said and done now. He's president. When he was a candidate, Trump, it was all fun and games. When he became the president, Trump, they want to call him out. We know what she's saying out of here. Uh, everybody knows the acronym. You can go back and look. Bill, don't say that. I won't. Exactly. I won't say that. I may say one of them, but I ain't gonna say the whole thing. Marquetta said, Kevin. Marquetta is funny on this one, Kevin. She said, "Yo, you make it want to have some tea. It ain't even that cold out today, too." Exactly. Hopefully, it's tea. Lynette said, "Carla, the president emboldened them. The man has single-handedly set race relations back by 50 years and has rationalized more Americans than ISIS ever come." I see you, Tamara. We said we must just be giving people passes anymore. We did that pass, exactly. What do you think about what Lynette said, everybody, about she's basically, Lynette is saying that, he just fueled the fire. He lit the match. What do you think, Booker?
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. I believe that he did that, and he did it when he ran. He ran on a theme that Reagan did, but one of the things that he did when he ran, he kept saying a lot, you should be able to say what you want to say. And I think what he was saying is, if you have pent up hostilities, it's all right to release them. And I think that, name calling to people of color, Black people in particular, in history was really making fun of us, but it was those were derogatory terms. But for the people doing them, they were having fun doing them. That's what racism is.
And it also made them feel powerful. It made
exactly.
them
it makes them feel
because they felt
exactly
that they were demeaning you and making you feel less than. So it made them feel powerful and feel like I'm better than you.
Exactly. So belittling me, to make you feel better is what I felt he was releasing when he was running. Now, we saw it all coming, and when it happened, I thought, well, America's not going to do this, because I felt, we've come a long way. This is not the direction the country wanted to go. But then when he won, that was kind of you could kind of take the top off the jar and say, okay, he just let out the can of worms. And so when I think about racism, and I really hate racism, because I think racism is a form of hatred that eats at the very fabric of a human being. And when you're dealing with racism, one, it sets out to do damage to me, and it sets out to establish you. And so when you're dealing with racism, the idea of racism and what it does to a people, in this case in America, it's people of color, but you can go all over the world and find forms of racism in different places. Here in America, we know ours stems out of slavery, stems out of Jim Crow. There's a history of it. And in that history, whether it's Sambo art, it was something mocking a person of color and devaluing that person as a human being. Trump did that. He did that when he ran. And, he basically said, hey, I'm going to change when I get in there. I'm going to be different. He didn't. What happened is he kept fueling it. He kept putting things in it along the way. And I think that when he set the country back, it's like we're 1950, but yet we're 2016, 2017, 2018. So it's kind of like we've come this far, but I've got all of these experiences from way back there. Why do I have those? So now me as a person of color, I've got to check my heart now, right? I've got to start dealing with my own feelings. I'm not going to start hating people. I'm not going to start disliking people. Because that's not me. But racism, it creates such a divide and a division where all of a sudden you go, you know what? This is it. And I think that's what happened here. And that's why the country is in gridlock, because it has experienced this form of hatred, this form of evil against a group of people so intensely that I think most Black people are like, my children will not go any further with this, and I'm not going any further with this. And I think that's where we are. And that's why when people say he set it back 50 years, you know, we're back dealing with something that we thought we were getting better from, and now it's in our lap again.
Right. Awesome. Awesome. Kev, I want your opinion on what Booker said. If you could piggyback, reiterate, or chime in. And I just want to shout out everybody watching. This is Real Talk Chronicles. I appreciate you all. Mike Malibu, I see you, brother. I hope you're being safe out there in Atlanta. Kev, when Mike retires, you won't be the only white person on the show. You're the first, but you're going down in history. You're gonna be with me on the first. Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. So you know, when Trump started in 2016, when he was running, I don't think anybody really thought of him as a racist, right? That wasn't a goofball, a misogynist, a pig, no question, right? Like, but nobody ever thought of him as a racist. And you know, the crazy neo-Nazi white supremacist people fell for him, and he accepted their votes, right? Initially, like, Bill, if I was running for office, if it was this close, if Trump thought today he could win Pennsylvania and Georgia by the neo-Nazi vote, he'd take that in a heartbeat.
Yes, he would. Yes, he would.
I quit before I take that vote.
Yes,
I would quit. I don't want to be elected because 500 white supremacists or 5,000 white supremacists all ran in line to vote for me. I don't want their vote. I don't want their existence.
Exactly.
But he took their vote gladly. And it just kind of, to me, it spiraled from there. Instead of initially, I said this was not David Duke running for president, where there was no question what the man was. He never had a reputation for this. You know, that was not his history. And there are plenty of people like I listen to people like Dominic Carter who will get on TV and say Trump is not a racist. I've been friends with him for years, you know, and I know the man. And there are plenty of people I hear saying that. I don't know Donald Trump. I've never sat down with him and had, you know, dinner with him. And I never had a Big Mac with him or whatever the disgusting food he might eat. But he accepted them. And yeah, did they get braver? Yeah, they did. And there's no question. And are we going to be in for some interesting times the next couple of months? Yes. And should you watch your back? And that's both sides. And you said it first, Bill, right? I got to watch mine. You got to watch yours. You know, Booker and Carl. Cops have to watch their back. You know, Jews at synagogues have to watch their back. There's a whole bunch of people who got to watch their back. Do I expect? There are lots of crazy people out there, and they're hardcore, whatever their beliefs are. It doesn't matter to me. But all this stuff that goes on here, whether it's Fox News or CNN, or I don't care who it is. I don't. You'll learn. I don't like any of them. I think they all are skewed. They all put fuel on the fire. Mm-hmm. People keep pushing this stuff. This election stuff is going to start tearing people apart. And those people who got a couple of things loose, they're going to act. There is absolutely going to people who are going to act.
Yeah. You know what's so funny? I want to comment. I'm gonna read Lynette's comment. She said, "Kevin, of course he was racist." And I want to ask you your opinion on this, Kevin, too. She says, She said, "I'll never forget the Central Park Five, the housing discrimination, how he treated his black employees at his casinos." What do you say about that?
I don't know about the casinos. What I could say about the Central Park Five at that time, everybody in New York City wanted to hang those five kids. Everybody in New York City. So Donald Trump was not like the one person out there who said, F those kids, they should die for the rest of their life. Everybody in New York City wanted a piece of those kids, right? Because we all thought the same thing, that they were out there, they beat that woman in the year of her death and raped her over and over again. That's what we all thought. So none of us liked those kids. So I can't hold anything against Trump for putting an ad at that time. If we're looking at it in hindsight today. If those kids were still in jail, nobody would blink an eye at that ad. but we're looking at it in 2020 goggles, and you can't. You have to look at it like it was when it happened. And when it happened, everybody believed it.
And you know what? I'll play with that. But let me just say this: what happens if they would have gave the death penalty to those kids? If they would have reinstated the death penalty and gave it to them, and they would have died and found out that they were innocent?
Not Trump's fault. That's investigators and prosecutor.
Okay, all right.
I mean, that's not.
No, I'm going with you on that. Okay.
Trump, Kevin, Bill, Booker, Call. None of us have inside information on that.
Go ahead. You want to say something? Somebody want to say something? Go ahead.
Yes, I'm kind of curious about that, because I wonder if that then becomes investigators and prosecutors. Is that a systemic issue? Is that something in the system? How do we miss that, or how do they become these five black boys? How do they become the subject? How do they become the suspects? I mean, what happens? Because most people look at that and say, hey, that's racial profiling, that's racism. How do they become the center for this crime when neither one of them had anything to do with it?
Well, they were.
Is that a systemic issue?
They
were in the park.
They were in the park. They were among apparently other people that were wilding out that night or whatever. So they were engaged, I do believe, in some criminal mischief. And then, of course, I guess because they were in the right place at the right time. And then I do believe, and Kevin, you can, correct me, but it was the woman who actually identified them. And so
I don't think she could. I think she was in a coma for months. I don't think she could.
Yeah,
she was. Okay. She wasn't in a coma. She wasn't in a coma.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just got to read some comments. Lynette said, okay, but he still had the same position after the DA proved their innocence. And that was true. He didn't have any remorse. And then I remember
Donald Trump will never admit he's wrong.
Okay, right. I get you.
That's it. He's just never going to say I'm wrong.
And what's so funny? It's great that you said that. But I think the problem with that is that it's the same thing that a lot of people have with police unions, where they don't see any sympathy or any remorse, or it's just straight like combative. And I know this from being a martial artist. There's a yin and a yang, and that's just soft and hard. And anything in life is soft and hard. So if you come home and your wife yells at you, or your husband yells at you, and first thing you say is like, "Yo, what are you yelling at me for?" It's you're clashing. You got to find out first. Well, wait a minute, what's wrong? You know what I'm saying? So that's where it is. Shout out to my brother Lewis in the building, my martial arts brother. And I saw you, Jeff. Shout out to you too, Yush. Lewis said, my issue was that there's zero evidence linking them to the crime. Absolutely. And then Lynette said, to this day, he still won't admit his wrong. What about the Obama birther movement? Trump started that too. I see you hot. She had no recollection. She didn't though. My sister's in the building. She said, Bill, the timetable needs to be checked on that. If I recall, Trump did the ad after the DA came with evidence disputing them being guilty. Well, can you do me a favor, sis, right now? Can you fact check that for me? Somebody fact check that for me, because I don't know. But now, the one thing that I have, and talking about this and that, people have a problem speaking up. I have it. Kevin and I ask people to come on this show all the time. So I always applaud the people that do come on. And not to say that everybody wants to come on. There are certain people, people have their lanes. Some people don't mind being behind the scenes conversing. Some people don't mind being in front of the cameras conversing. But I think a lot of times when we just talk about not even just speaking out in real talk, we're just talking about real talk wherever you are, at your job, at some place like that. Just to switch it and ask your insight, and I'll start with you, Carla. Why do you think people take that passive, I don't want to get involved mentality?
I mean, I think that's just personality.
Okay.
There are some people that, they're a little bit more tentative. or maybe because of circumstances, they don't want to get involved, maybe past circumstances and experiences that were negative. They may not want to speak out. They may not want to get involved. They don't want to have the drama, that might come at them for, them speaking their opinions, and things like that. So, I just think that's, personality and type of thing. I mean, if you're talking specifically about,
Well, I mean, you can put it in any spin you want. I mean, look, we live in a world now where anything that happens, a person grabs a camera and they video a police officer, or they'll video anything for social status, right? But I have to applaud the people that have stepped forward to videotapes, and also too, it's sad. I mean, like the one thing
well,
I think also that put a nail in the president's coffin, if I may say that before I'm not sure yet. It was the George Floyd. It was the people that that officer that killed him. Like everybody witnessed the murder.
I disagree.
What'd you say?
I disagree.
Okay, well you got it right. That's real talk. So go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, no, I was going to let you finish your thought, but I wanted to.
No, well, tell me what you disagree on.
I mean, okay, you specifically said you think the George Floyd incident was what put the nail in President Trump's coffin, or we hope.
Yeah. Well, and I think it added to it. I mean, coffin might need 20 nails. I mean, I'm just saying, it could have been the last one or the first one.
I definitely agree that it is a factor, but I think the biggest factor was his response to the pandemic. Because once the pandemic started affecting the economy, then those people that didn't believe in the pandemic, or those people that, just didn't really care about the pandemic, but once it started messing with their pocketbooks, and once it started messing with the 401ks, those people that have 401ks, which that's a whole nother issue, how Trump kept talking about 401ks when there's a whole percentage of the country that is too poor to have a 401k, or does not have the opportunity to have a 401k because of the type of employment that they have. But I think that it came down to what was happening, how he responded to the pandemic, and then how it started to affect those things that were in the president's favor, which the number one thing was his supposed good job in help in, with the economy.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that I think there are a lot of family members, huh?
No, I was just saying, so there's the people who you hit their pocketbook and they have a problem.
Yeah,
That's when
point.
That's when it's like, hey, you're not just in my front yard, you're in my house.
Right.
So,
I mean, I think that's a big point. I mean, I think COVID was too, but I think, from a standards of when we talk about racism and you don't see a person from in his position to say, well, yeah, that was messed up. I mean, it's just like when we saw, and Kevin, I had told you to go back to see the interview with Michael Strahan and Sergeant Mattingly. And, he was like, he was talking at first, he was coming off as apologetic and things of that magnitude. But then that, as people of color would say, the sheets came on now. And then he started talking about, oh, yeah, well, it's a shame happened with George Floyd. But then we don't know if he died of fixation or overdose. Like, dog, like, where did that come from? You know what I'm saying? Like, you brought that up. I mean,
now,
you talked about, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I definitely feel, for people of color, I think that was a tipping point. I mean, and because of what I said before about the fact that we've been dealing with trauma for decades, but in the last 4 years, it's been, ridiculous. And I think that was a tipping point, definitely.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
What was, I think, unique about what happened with George Floyd is I think it was a tipping point for other people that are not in their daily life affected by the racism that Black people have been affected by for as long as we can remember. And I think these other people whether it's, people of other races or whatever, other economic, backgrounds or whatever, that, they just don't run into these problems. But I think those people seeing what happened with George Floyd, I think it was a wake up call for them, and a realization that, oh, okay, yes, I heard about Breonna Taylor. Yes, I heard about Arbery. Yes, I heard about, we can keep going back and back and back. But I think that and the way it played out, and social media is, a big part of it. I think that was a kind of, oh, it's not just a Black person's problem. This is definitely a problem for all of us. It was like the recognition that this is not just a Black person's problem. This is a problem for all of us.
Awesome. Booker, I'm gonna let you answer, and then I'm gonna come to Kevin. I have two questions for Kevin after Booker, but I just want to get your insight on what did you think was maybe a tipping stone or the nail in the coffin per se in the president maybe losing this election. Did you free? Okay, there you go. Got you.
No, yes. I think he had, it was a ripple effect of things that happened for him. I mean, I think it was a domino effect. I think right. I think Black Lives Matter caused him a lot of problems. The fact that the many cities across the United States were starting to have, I don't want to call them these protests. Of course, some turned into more riotous behavior, but you had these protests. I think was a start in it. And I think when he started to proclaim himself as the president of law and order, and you saw citizens being kind of brutalized in the streets, I think that scared a lot of people who weren't just African Americans. I think that caused a lot of people to feel that their liberties were being taken away from them. And I mean, even myself, I went out and protested when George Floyd passed away, when he was murdered. I went out and protested during that time. I didn't do any with Ahmaud Arbery. I was more just extremely frustrated. But when I sat there and watched George Floyd, I could not sit here any longer. Right. So I think that became a start. Then I think that the way he handled the COVID crisis, he's never telling America the truth about where we stand with COVID. It's just around the corner, or it's going to wash right out. I have my own beliefs about how that virus got here. But I have, just with China, the conflict with the trade policies. I've had my own beliefs about how the virus kind of came about. But I think the way he managed COVID caused people to just become very fatigued. I know I just became exhausted during this period. So I think people just became exhausted and they wanted something else. It's just like, I need somebody to tell me the truth about this virus, about this condition, and not just spewing something that technically isn't working at all.
Awesome. I want to read Lewis' remarks. He said the violence against Black Americans and the number of mass shooting events in this country during the administration, 417 in 2019. Not a word of commendation or condemning from the White House. Kevin, I want to come to you on a couple of questions. First, I want to ask you, how do you feel?
But I want to hit you on that statement if you're going to put Lewis's comment out there, because those stats are not right.
All right, Lewis.
I'm going to challenge him on it.
All right, Lewis.
I'm throwing the flag.
So I think somebody has to fact check.
There are two different ways those stats are kept for mass shootings. So you can have a gang, a shooting that happened in New York City this weekend when 2 people are shot. That'll be counted as a mass shooting in that stat. That's not a mass shooting. right? That's not somebody who went out to do a mass shooting. Those numbers are just, it's just not the right numbers. Like those, if you're going with 417 in 2019, those are just unfortunately, your everyday shootings that happen in New York and Chicago and other places around the country, but they're not what we call a mass shooting, which is going into a location where you're shooting numerous people for the sake of just killing those people because of, it's usually based on race or religion or something along those lines. But I just had to, I have to challenge him on that.
All right. So definitely, like he said, good, let's do it. He threw in the flag. So can somebody out there find out exactly what the meaning of mass shootings are? And then we can go on and we can come back to that. Thank you, Kev. So Kev, let me ask you a question. Give it to me quick. He said -4 or more. All right. He says,
give me the site. I'll give you the site that there's not that many in the last decade.
All right. Well, you can give him the site. Go ahead. Give him the site if you look it up. All right. Before you go, can you get it now, or you can get it before you go?
We'll finish up. I'll put on. I'll put some stuff out.
Okay, cool. So let me ask you a question real quick, Kev, because I want to go into another question with you. But how do you think the president handled the COVID pandemic and the pandemic that's happening now, still to this day?
I think he did a bad job. I think, I don't know if any of them did a good job. And I think whoever's in the White House was going to take a beating during the pandemic because it was an unprecedented thing we've just never seen before. And so I don't look at him as harshly as others because I don't think Biden, Bush, Obama, or anybody else would have done a perfect job. Whoever was there was going to make mistakes because that's what happens when you have an incident of this caliber. In New York, Cuomo was given a pretty good grade on that. It's probably one of the better ones, but he still screwed up nursing homes, right? When we screwed up nursing homes across this country, very early on. That's my thing, man. Do I think he did a good job? No. Do I think he was the worst thing ever? It's hard to measure because we've never seen this before.
Okay. I got two things coming. Hold on, caller. I got two. Well, caller, go ahead. Say what you're going to say, and then I'm going to read it. So if you can say it quick.
Sure. No, I was just going to say that I think there were many ways that he could have done things, done a better job. The number one thing, stop mocking people who wore masks. I mean, that is something inexpensive, a simple tool that you can put in the hands of every single American citizen to help mitigate this whole virus and the spread of this virus. And just with his talking points about that very basic thing, we could have had less deaths.
That's awesome. This is Real Talk Chronicles, everybody. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host, Kevin Branzetti. And thank you to our lovely panel for chiming in with us. We got Booker and we got Carla hanging out with us today. They were here yesterday with Malika and I on an election special. So I just want to read 3 comments, and then I'm going to go to my next question because then I have another thing that I have in my mind for you all, and I don't want to keep you too late. My sister said, fact check. Past news story indicates Trump ad ran less than 2 weeks after the incident. States that he played a key role in shaping the public's opinion ad about them at that time. Lewis said most mass shooters are usually not racially motivated. However, last year the dynamic changed. My sister said Kev was correct. Large majority of folks probably believed that they were guilty from the start, and Idiot 45 especially pushed that message. Kev, so I want to talk about shootings. But first, I'm going to talk about multiple shootings when a lot of times people don't understand about when they hear about a person getting shot like 13 times, like Walter Wallace. And I really wanted to talk about him earlier because I thought they were supposed to be releasing the footage of the body cam. But before I go to that, Kevin, I want your opinion. I want to ask you your personal feelings on from a human being. Is it fair to say a white man, a white officer, but from a human being and an officer, when you saw what happened to George Floyd? Like, give me your perspective from a humanitarian side, and an officer side. Go ahead.
I was muted. Yeah. Bill, it made me want to vomit, right? Like, the second you see that, it is, I can't believe somebody who wore the same uniform I did could do that to another human being, right? Like, that's not the cops I know, loved, and work with. It's just not. I hoped and prayed for the first couple of weeks that there was going to be some other video that would come out and show something that would be like, oh, this makes sense. It never came. There was no fact that ever came afterwards. There are very few, and where I can look at and instantly go, that's murder. And that was one of them. There's a lot where I'll look at and go, I don't know about this one. And there's a lot I'll look at and go, they were wrong. They made a mistake, but out and out, just murder. It was hard to watch. I still can't get, how it happened, right? And you threw something out earlier, and I've seen people say this, and I've seen people post on things about George Floyd and his history, if he even has a bad history. I don't care. He could have been, the worst, shooter in this country for the last 30 years and robbed a lot of people. I don't care. He was cuffed and on the floor.
Absolutely.
He should have been put in a car and put in jail.
Absolutely.
We're not executioners.
Absolutely.
And if you post any, so one last.
Hold on, caller.
If you as a cop or civilian post anything disparaging him, or you let one of your friends post anything disparaging of him, shame on you.
Yeah. I was in a group.
He didn't ask to be it.
Yeah. I was in a 2A group, and it was like, messenger group, and somebody wrote that, and it just sent me off the chain. And that's one thing too, a lot of times, and that's why I commend you for who you are, Kevin, to a degree, because a lot of officers retired and still working when we in these private groups, do they ever think about, well, damn, I work with a black person, I wonder how he feels, or what, they just put blue ahead of everything. Carl, I know you wanted to say something before I go to the next question. If it's quick, go ahead. You want to reply to Kevin? Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
No, I just actually just wanted to ask Kevin a question, since you're in law enforcement too, Kevin. And I just wanted to know, like, what do you think about, of course, the officer that had his knee on the neck of George Floyd? That was obvious, his actions. But what do you think about the other three officers, the fact that they didn't try to stop, or maybe just say, hey, I think we got him under control, let's just get him in the car. But they kind of, stood by and just kind of watched that. Is it a kind of like a fear of the fact that this man was their supervisor, or he had a higher rank than them or something? I don't know all the details.
So they two of them, I didn't understand it either, right? When I saw three guys with their knees on him and holding him there for that long, that was one of the oddest positions I've seen, right? It's not something we would ever would have done, right? Three of us. So I was wondering, like, is it something they train? Is it something they do? But you learned afterwards, those two were brand new rookies. They had a week on the street. So they're just doing, they're the baby ducklings doing what the big duck, right? We're taught as young cops, right? Shut up and just do what did I expect those cops to be able to speak up at that point and say, no? And look, I can't tell you if that was me, what I would have done that day.
Right.
I can tell you what I do today. There's no question of the man I am today. But any cop who tells you with a week on the job what they would have done in that scene is lying to you, because you forget that first week. I remember that first week. I remember my first foot post. Like, you stand out there, you're as dumb as they come, right? You don't know what's going on in the world. You're not ready. But shame on we had somebody in the 2-8 when we first got there, Bill. I'm not going to say the man's name, who was always behind the desk because the guy was well, he was batshit crazy. But
yeah. I think I know who you're talking about.
I'm
I know
not
who
going
you're
to say
talking
the man's name, but he was behind the desk.
Right.
The CO knew who people were who were a little overly aggressive or a little bit nutty.
Right.
They don't belong out there with rookies.
Right.
Whoever put those two rookies out with him, should be out their job.
Yeah.
They did not. The rookies are so impressionable, and like I said, we're taught to just shut up and do what the senior guy says and how they do. You learn to be a cop from the street. You do not learn from an academy. You learn some rules and some things, but you don't learn.
I think that's missing. Just to interject, what Kevin is saying is absolutely true. When we came out, we were taught, just do as I say. Like that book, that's cool. The only thing that book is going to teach you is what are you going to charge as a crime when you make an arrest. Otherwise than that, we're going to teach you the street, and that was a whole different spectrum. That was A, and that was Z. So what he is saying is absolutely true. And I'm gonna let Carla and Booker ask you some questions. We got some stuff going on in the chat room. We'll get back to that because I see a lot of y'all got some comments. Y'all want to still talk about that thing. But I want to ask Kevin, and I'm gonna let Carla and Booker ask questions on these things.
We'd love to.
Yeah. I'm gonna go to Breonna Taylor real quick, and then I'm gonna go to Walter Wallace, and then we go back to this thing right here. So if you can condense your answers or your questions. So Kevin, they talked about the attorney general, the grand jurors came out in the Breonna Taylor case, and they said they were never offered certain charges for the shooting, the officers. They also felt like the jurors said that they felt it was a cover up. What do you think? Just what do you think about what you're hearing now in regards to that?
That is completely normal, right? You do not let a grand jury just decide what charges are going to be made, right? The prosecutor is going to decide that beforehand and is going to give that list of charges in there, right? They're not going to be given carte blanche because that style of case. You also got to understand something. That case, that's not like you have a new arrest today on the street, and as a cop, I bring it in to the prosecutor's office and I talk to a junior prosecutor, and they write it up and we move on. And there's probably little to no supervision. Mm-hmm. That case is getting, lots of people brought in, lots of supervision, and lots of minds going into this, right? Like I've been on the inside of big cases. It is not a one prosecutor. He is the attorney general. That man did not do this alone, right? Like he sat with other people. So he knows more of the facts than any one of us, clearly.
Okay, right? So hold on. Keep that thought right there. Well, he came on TV and said the jurors did not deem anything, they didn't see those charges necessary. So the jurors are saying he didn't even offer charges remotely close to
what charges are they saying? See, he's going to only offer charges that fit the incident, right? And some people may think, there are instances where people think, well, the cop should have been charged with murder, not manslaughter. Well, you can't just charge somebody with murder if it doesn't fit what the law is. And if he just lets a grand jury indict them on a law that does not fit the crime, it is going to get tossed. It is never going to survive, right? This is a senior prosecutor with a senior team looking over the evidence, knowing full well there is going to be a huge amount of people, second guessing what he does. Mm-hmm. So me, I have more faith in this than that. Like I with those facts, I believe he probably did the right thing in the end. What was going on with that?
Booker, Carla, do you have any questions for Kevin?
I was going to lead down a different path, so I don't know. I wanted to talk about police training, and ask both of you questions about that. There's been talk.
Hold on, Carla. We can do that, but Booker, did you have a question or comment to what Kevin said?
with Breonna Taylor, the one question that I had that bothered me was the non-announcement of police coming in. That really bothered me. And then the fact that they had already captured the person they were looking for. And because see, I look at police as being, the job is so dangerous, and understand that job is so dangerous. And going in, when you're going in, it's almost like I feel you want all of the information necessary before before you make your move, before you pull your gun. It's like they're seconds. The way I view it as just as a citizen, and I could not understand. I don't understand the no knock warrants, and I did not understand. How is it that they did not know the gentleman was already captured?
So you got a couple of things here. And the biggest problem with this is something Bill and I talk about, what needs to be part of the police reform, is we don't know a lot of facts, right? Like we get bits and pieces. And I can't understand how police chiefs, commissioners, and mayors and others haven't figured this out yet. Like you can't hide little nuggets and let speculation happen because it just makes it worse. If you got you got a terrible incident on your hands, you got a terrible incident on your hands. Just be honest with it and tell the public and bring in some people. But there's a whole lot of things, right? And I don't know their procedure there. I can only go with what Bill and I did. Bill and I did lots of search warrants. We're a part of the team, right? I'm assigned the bunker. I'm assigned the guy knocking the door. I have zero to do with the investigation at hand. The whole entry team could have zero to do with the investigation. The investigator gets the information, goes to a judge, gets the warrant, and then there's a team to take in the door. That investigator may be one of those members or may not be. But so the rest of the team, if that investigator did a lousy job and his supervisor did a bad job of reviewing it, that's on them. But once they're going through that door and that team hits that door, those other guys in there are not responsible for the investigator's work. And we can't be that way. It may sound strange to you, but this is just their entry team. Their job is they look at the warrant. The warrant's legal. Our job is to go in there at this time. We're taking that door. We're going through the door. Shots are fired. We're returning fire. I mean, that's, the amount of no-knock warrants that are done in this country. Shame on us. Again, problem with law enforcement. We couldn't even tell you the stats. They're in the tens of thousands, though, right? Overwhelming majority go well. No knocks are an important thing, and I'll explain why. But the way we do them is also with speed and stealth, right? I want to blast through your door, scare the snot out of you, and have you on the floor in a pair of cuffs before you realize what just happened, right? That's our goal, right? Because if it's the same training military goes through, we go through. Fast and furious, get it done quick, get everybody cuffed, and then you could slow down and do your searches and talk to everybody and try to calm people down. They're not pretty. They're not meant to be pretty, right? Like a no-knock search warrant is not meant to be pretty, but there's got to be a reason for a no-knock. Gun is always a reason. If they believe there's a gun in that place, I'm getting a no-knock because I don't want to give you the opportunity to get your gun and fire back. And this happens. This has happened. Like it's not
made up. It's not
made up. Do people, I'm kicking in your door to get all because I'm hitting a stash house. Will they start flushing it down the toilet if I'm sitting at the door for 3 minutes? Hell yeah. It'll absolutely, disappear. Also, to me, warrants from narcotics were an incredibly important part of our job. I can, back when we were out there, Bill, how many street kids could we arrest a week?
Countless, all the time.
Because some new 15-year-old or 15-year-old kid, just didn't know any better, or 40-year-old crackhead will take that spot in a heartbeat. Rotating door. But the boss never got hit. Warrants were part of the process of trying to work your way up to bosses and getting the people who are actually responsible to get locked up and get in trouble. Right, instead of these poor kids on the street, right? Locking up street kids. Like I said, any city in New York, any city in this country, we could do that all day long. They're just fools. So warrants are important to us. But in New York, we have procedures, right? NYPD, because we learn from mistakes. Do we ever kick in the wrong door in the NYPD? Hell yeah. Did we ever make a mistake and have kick in the door? There's incidents where we kicked in the door and, elderly woman has a heart attack and dies because we scared the hell out of her. We scared her to death. We have checks and balances. So if I'm getting the warrant, my sergeant, my lieutenant, my captain, the borough chief are all signing off on this. If I'm wrong, my career is over. And everybody in NYPD knows if you hit something wrong, the wrong door, your career is done. There's no question about it. It's actually one of the most nerve-wracking things to do, where there's an argument a lot of cops make. Why would I ever do one? Because it's not worth it. There's no benefit as a cop except for personal satisfaction that I got the guy. But the other end of it, it's there. There is a cop every year whose career is over because of a warrant. I don't know their procedure though. So going back to this whole thing, and Bill and I have talked about this a lot. If that cop who got the warrant lied on his affidavit, he goes to jail. Right? If that comes out later on, he goes to jail. But not the cops who walked in the door.
So let me ask you a question. Let me interject real quick, Kevin. Yeah. It's supposedly that the information that he said was false. He said that the post office said that they were delivering drugs there. He didn't do his his last checks, his recon, because he would have found out that Rihanna and the dude wasn't even together for Miss Taylor, and the guy hadn't been together for months or whatever the time was, and he would have found out that he didn't live there. So what do you think should have happened to him because of that?
Look, if he lied in his affidavit, he goes to jail.
Okay.
That's it. It's a sworn affidavit in front of a judge. It's a crime.
All right.
If he took a shortcut and didn't do his due diligence, that's a tougher one. Clearly fired. There's no question, right? Like you don't belong in that job. Right. Does it constitute criminal? I'd have to look at more of the details of that. It could be. Okay. It could put him in an area. You lied, someone died. Is a very serious thing.
Right.
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host, Kevin Branzetti. We have Carla Anderson and Booker Haas in the building. Carla, if you remember your question, I apologize. I just wanted to stay on that topic with Kevin. I know you wanted to talk about change and training. You wanted to ask Kevin and I. If you remember that, please ask us so we can answer that for you.
Yeah, I was just interested, both you, Bill, and you, Kevin, there's I think a lot of people talk about the fact that maybe police officers aren't given the necessary training that they need, that there needs to be, a psychological aspect to it, not just the, this is the ABCs of how you do the job, and then you're going to learn the rest on the street. And the fact maybe that training should even take a little bit longer. If you want to back up even before we talk about training, there's also the fact that a lot of people talk about maybe there need to be stricter criteria for determining if someone can even, be a police officer. Like there should be a more extensive psychological profile of people that become police officers and things like that. What are all your thoughts on like training improvements that could be in training? If there should be improvements in training, if people are asking about those things, maybe just don't understand what law enforcement is about, and maybe there's some reason why you can't do it that way. If you guys want to talk about that some, I'm really curious about it.
There's definitely a lot that needs to get done with training, right? The psychological is a difficult one. And I don't know if there's many tests that will eliminate somebody. We took the psychological, what I thought used to work, and we're not tough anymore in the academy. Academy should be what we'd see on TV shows with an Army drill sergeant in boot camp. Mm-hmm. They should be insulting. They should be nasty, because you got to see if you can take it. You got to see if it's got a little bit of a thick skin and who's going to snap and smack the guy in the face, right?
Right.
We don't want that, but they're not allowed to be like that anymore. Academies used to be like that. They used to insult you. They used to pick on you. They were trying to break you down. But then instructors got in trouble because they were being mean, or they were called racist or sexist or something else. And so they stopped. We stopped doing that in the academy. And now everybody gets a hug. And I'm sorry, you got to get punched in the face sometimes and see what you got. So that's wrong. Our gun training is awful. Awful.
Really?
Awful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Whoa.
We go twice a year to the range, right? And I talked about this with Bill the other week, right? Bill, tell me what martial arts you can train in twice a year and be an expert.
Nothing. None.
Zero.
Not one. Not one.
What am I an expert in that I train twice a year? That's all the NYPD gives you. And those 2 days, you're training for 2 hours on those 2 days.
Oh
Most of the day we spend outside sitting there talking to old friends. I spend hours. I can't stand going to the range. It actually annoys me.
It's almost like a waste of time. It really is.
Waste of day.
That seems like it's such a critical thing, because with the shooting that happened in West Philadelphia with Wallace, the people were saying was they couldn't understand that these cops were like 8-12 feet away from this guy who has a knife. Why couldn't they shoot him in the leg to make him?
Well, shooting the leg doesn't exist, right? We're never taught that. The 8 to 10 to 12 feet. I'm trying to remember what was the number where they taught us in the academy. It was higher than that. What's the danger?
What?
The man with a knife.
Seven.
No.
What is that? 15? What is that? What's that?
It was. I thought it was closer to 20. I can't even remember. It's so long.
No,
but the danger with a knife. That guy was within our training. He is a deadly threat. Absolutely was within our training. Now, can you? There's cars. There's things. And, we don't train that. Like, we're not trained. That scenario, we don't do. We stand at a firing line and we fire twice a year, and if you can hit the target enough times, you pass. They try once in a while. A new CO will come in and do something interesting at the range, and then a cop will have a misfire and somebody downrange will get shot in the leg, and we'll never do that training again. But our training is not where it should be. The other part of it is, the more time cops are spent training, they're not on the street. And, police commissioners want, their belief is the more cops they can have working every day outside in uniform is less crime. And that's what they're judged on, is less crime. For a commissioner to come in today, any department, and train differently, and then put in, mandatory, twice a month, 3 times a month firearms training. Well, they're going to take cops off the street for this next year, for the next 2 years. Their crime stats may go up a little bit. The commissioner later on, 6 years down the road, is going to benefit from what they did. But we don't think down the road. It's what's in it for me today. And it's, it's a never-ending process. Do some departments train better in their firearms? Yeah, I'm sure that they do. But we're seeing it. You could see it, right? Live on people. Now, you also have to say this. There is a complete difference of training and doing something live. I can't train people in adrenaline. I can't train you in fear. I can't train you with tunnel vision. I can't. But we can at least try to get a little closer. We can do things to make it, get their hearts racing a little bit more and get them used to, like, thinking a little bit differently, But, training wise, that guy is within what is considered, he's a deadly threat, that distance. I have never heard of any police department training their cops to shoot somebody in the leg.
Wow.
Should we have kept playing merry-go-round around those cars for longer? Probably, maybe. I'm not there. I'm not looking at what else is around them, right? I'm not as worried about him stabbing me. Is he really that crazy? Is he going to go stab somebody else? If I let that, now let's look at the other scenario, right? If I let that go longer, and then, somebody walks by and that guy slashes this woman's throat and kills her, my career is over as the cop too, right? Like, I'm going to be damned that way as well. It's not as simple as it's, a clear-cut thing. You'd be shocked at what, people are oblivious to things that are going on and will just walk right by it, right? People will just
Right.
There's a video of a gentleman in the UK who got beheaded on the street. He was a military guy.
Yeah. You
And
talking about the teacher?
no, this is a couple of years ago in London. This is
Oh,
a few years
okay.
back. Not knowing. The guy is standing there who did it with the knives bleeding, screaming, and people walk by him. Old woman with shopping cart, like there was a sale down the block. Like people are oblivious. Like it's mind blowing. You wouldn't think people could be oblivious, but there's a lot that could happen with that scenario. Would I much rather we were taught how to, shoot the person in the leg, or we had something where we could kind of knock him down and hit him with 5 rubber bullets real fast? Yeah, of course. I would like to say the majority of us, want to leave our job without ever shooting another human being. Yeah. I was quite happy to have never fired my gun. I'm a non-death penalty guy. I don't want to kill. But have I seen cops who where are there cops out there who think once they have the green light, they have to? Right? And there's that training too. Yeah. Those exist.
They are, let me just interject. I think, what Kevin is saying is true. He was about to go in a little deeper and he froze himself. But like he said, there are cops out there that, if they got the green light, they gonna shoot. Right. Where maybe Kevin and I might be like, I don't want to do this. Don't make me, you know what I'm saying? I may, we may spew out a comment like, yo, you better back up before I put a cap in your ass. You understand what I'm saying? In lieu of where they're not going to, there are certain officers that he knows, and I know, and when I say no, maybe so much not personally, but maybe personally, that we know if they get that shot, that opportunity, that is what they're going to do. I just wanted, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host, Kevin Branzetti. I got Booker in the house. I got Carl in the house. I just want to read some of the comments. Celeste said, I feel that unfortunately, no matter how much training you give, you can never tell how a person is going to react when they are afraid. Absolutely. Lewis said, he was referring to you, Carla. He said the training is the term, the shoots in a mask. Exactly. Celeste said, did they both have to shoot? They let off 10 shots for one knife. And I wanted Kevin, that was one of my questions. I was going to get to Kevin and let him talk about that. And I would talk about that. Lynette said, you asked the question, do they teach self-defense in the academy? No, they don't. They just teach you how to speed cuff somebody. In defense of what Kevin is saying, it's hard to aim at a particular body part, i.e. the leg, when trying to shoot at a moving target. Bottom line, those cops were scared of a damn butter knife. In defense, first, I'll give my take on that. You can't teach heart. As much as I enjoy doing this job and me being tactically sound, and Kevin knows this, that was my niche. Kevin was an excellent street officer, and he was an excellent paperwork officer, right? Sometimes in the job, it's just like in sports. You play a certain position because you're good at that position. So now when we're talking tactics, when people take this test, they take it for being, second generation, third generation. People take it because it's a city job, and after a certain amount of years you can retire. Right. Some people take it because they didn't have any other which way to go but up, and that was it. I feel there's a lot of people on this job that, and this is real talk, a lot of people on this job, they would be nothing without NYPD, and that's why they're so consumed with it. Not like somebody maybe like Kevin that could have been anything else he wanted to be in life, or myself, but the bottom line is this was the avenue we chose to go down. With that being said, like I said, there are some people that, what were they doing before they got this job? Working at McDonald's, working in Carvel, working with their cousin in construction or electrician or some shit like that. So, it is what it is. That goes around the board. You know what I'm saying? But with that being said, and saying all that, when you're in the heat of a moment, you don't know how you're going to act. And I think Kevin said that earlier. Also, too, what Lynette is saying, and I'm not denouncing what you're saying, Lynette, like, what's a butter knife to you and me, or maybe Kevin, or maybe Booker or Carla, or maybe not. It may be a butter knife, but to Carla, it's a machete in her mind because all she saw is a person with a knife, right? What gets sticky is that justification sits in for the shooting, right? Now, how far do they keep retreating? I have issues with the fact that this came over supposedly as an EDP 3 times. They didn't have tasers. The
What's
family
an
did,
EDP?
huh?
What's an EDP? What's an
Emotionally disturbed. I'm sorry, emotionally disturbed person.
Okay.
It came over earlier in the day that his family had called on him, right? What's up,
Right.
Barry? I see you. And I'm saying, okay, and I can only play Monday morning quarterback with this so much with this. Say Kevin and I responded in this, Sector Charlie, okay, we're coming in, got a man with a knife. If they don't tell us that this is an EDP, we're approaching this as a man with a knife in lieu of he might be trying to hurt somebody. Or why does he have a knife, right?
Right.
Now, depending on, I don't know how long those officers work together. Kevin and I may have been working together for a year, 2 years. We might have been in enough scrapes and dealt with situations like that. And that's why we always say about working at an A house. Kevin and I worked at an A house, and the A house means active precinct.
Okay.
When they came up, I don't know if a family member, because we know a family member did call. I don't know if a family member came up, and saw the cops come up and say, yo, that's my cousin. He's a little off. I don't know. He bugging out. He got a knife, right? You might say little off. What do you mean? What is little off? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How we would have handled that is totally different. Might have been like, yo, bro, drop the knife. Come on, man, drop the knife. Listen, as a martial artist doesn't mean I still want to tackle a dude with a knife in his hand. You tell me a martial artist that wants to tackle a dude with a knife in his hand, and I tell you, you're looking at TV. You understand what I'm saying? You really are. Because from a martial arts standpoint, I got Lewis in here. I have my man Jeff in here. I have other martial artists in here. You're going to get cut unless a person is so novice with how he handles that knife. Right? Now, I am a firm believer not to not bring up anybody's past. And what annoyed me with this a lot of times with talking about this individual is that they went right to he was a cop hater. He hated his mother. He used to fight his mother. He had problems already. So that has nothing to do with anything to me.
And that's where racism comes in, where when it's a black suspect, they always run in the record and they're always bringing up all the negative things, and they make sure that those things are known, and they don't necessarily do it with non-people of color.
It's also so funny you said that, because I'm a firm believer sometimes. It's just like if somebody gets in, like, especially with all the racial tension that was going on, and somebody, Trump, Biden, and somebody say something, and then you punch somebody in the mouth, and the person gets knocked down, and then all of a sudden they want to call a cop. They don't bring up the victim, his past. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's all of a sudden you want to spoon feed why he got shot. Now, when we talk about shootings, we was asked about why did they have to shoot multiple times over a butter knife. When we talk about shootings like that, we are, as officers, and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm assuming this is all over the country in the world, officers are taught to shoot multiple times. Very seldom are you taught to shoot one time. At the range, correct me if I'm wrong, we'll do the simulation. They'll say shoot 4 times, holster, right? Shoot 3 times, holster, and cover. Am I correct, Kevin?
You're right. Yeah.
All right. So now you have one man.
Is it that you're specifically taught to shoot to kill?
Shoot like to stop. It's shoot to stop. Stop the threat.
That's an interesting point. So you're saying that you're taught to shoot 3 or 4 times,
stop the threat,
right after the other, to stop. But wouldn't I mean, to me, the result is going to be kill. They're killed.
Well, you're shooting center mass, and you're shooting vital organs. So of course, they're never going to say shoot to kill, But when you shoot to stop, that's what they're telling you to do. You're stopping the threat. But I mean,
So
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about that, because that's been an aspect of police work that has troubled me, and that is the multiple rounds that are being fired at center mass when police are in these intense situations. And oftentimes, in this case with Walter Wallace, he had a knife, so this is a tense situation. I often wonder, are many rounds necessary? So he's got a knife. Are many rounds that necessary to basically subdue the individual? That's the challenge that I have with when I hear 13 rounds, 15 rounds. I go, man, couldn't 2 rounds do that? Or
that's a
3 rounds do that?
Booker, that's a fair thing. And there's a couple of factors, right? One, it is hard. You're still talking about adrenaline and fear. I will tell you that the overwhelming majority of people who fire their weapon, you ask them how many rounds immediately afterwards they fired, they're not going to know. They're not going to know, I fired 3, I fired 10, I fired 15. They may know 15 because the clip fell out. It was empty, right? They may understand that. But the difference between 3 and 7, they're not going to know. And if you've ever been in a, think of the worst fight you've been. Yeah, simulations, there, but I mean, like a real fight, right? A street fight, or just an out and out nasty argument with somebody. Things start coming out of you, like your body just goes. Well, this is worse. This is you're on the street, you're with a gun, you're fear. So. And I know it looks bad, and part of that looks bad because we're brought up watching TV shows where 1 round the person stops, and we kind of it doesn't work that way. 1 round, most people aren't stopping; they're coming still. Right? 1 round does not make a person go down. That first bullet, people don't drop. Most people don't realize that during like an incident like that, they don't realize they were shot until after the incident. It takes a few moments for the adrenaline to drop down, and they're like, oh, so the first bullet doesn't always do really anything to somebody. It will eventually.
And I'm just saying this, just to say what he's saying. I know Kevin is not justifying shooting a person multiple times, but the one thing is, he's saying that when you shoot, you're going to shoot multiple times. Now, like I said, it looks very bad when you maybe have 2 officers or 3 officers shooting one person 3 times, or 4, 8, 12. So then you're like, wait a minute, why'd you shoot him 12 times? And it was just one person. And I'm not sitting here, and I don't want anybody to miss and screw what I'm saying. I am not justifying a person getting shot that many times. I'm just telling you how it can happen. You understand to say what I'm saying? Maybe Kevin and I, we might have shot 4 times. I mean, when I'm saying 4, 2. You understand what I'm saying? I don't even know tactically. Like that situation. Like I said, I don't even know what happened. But when we start seeing about how many people get shot, like even going back to the gentleman that got paralyzed, his name Blake, I think. I forgot right now. Just with so much going on, he got shot in the back. Like to me, that was poor tactics. You don't shoot a person in the back. But see, this is the problem I had with a lot of other officers talking, that they was like, well, he should have complied. Yeah, we can talk about complying. But my thing is, what do? You're going to let him walk to his car, and then all of a sudden now you see that there's a threat. If the threat, because we haven't heard if there's a weapon still that he went to his car. We still don't know. But the bottom line is we know he got shot 7 times and he's paralyzed now. That's like what you're going to tell me. You tell your child, you say you can't go out, and then he walked to the door to go out. You going to let him go? You know what I'm saying? You're going to stop. You're going to close the door. So I don't want to hear stories about, complying and stuff like that. We get that. We get about complying. You understand what I'm saying?
So right now we're in this space where people want reform, and they even talk about defunding, which is basically reform. It's reform in areas, and it's what way I'm kind of seeing it. To maybe take funds and put them in other places. Maybe in this case it could be areas of training, psychological training, mental illness training for officers, because the way I see it is that police work is so vast. In other words, the situations that you encounter, it could be anything from George Floyd with a $20 bill, to this guy with a butter knife, to this guy over here with a machete, to somebody with a AR-15. Right. So when you look at the dangers involved and that spectrum of challenges that you face, where do you see reform in the areas of preserving life instead of taking life? Because I think that is one of the critical spaces that you're dealing with, because it's at the end of the day, they shot him 15 times. They didn't have to shoot him that many times. Where can reform, and how do you as officers see reform being interjected into these spaces that possibly new training, new avenues can be applied?
It goes right to the beginning of how our day started talking all together. If you're not bringing in both sides to the table to sit down and talk, to come up with reforms, you're never going to get there, right? What New York City did was they came up with new rules. Didn't bring any cops there. Whether it's the state bringing in new rules on defense and discovery, and they screwed up some things royally with that, and then they've kind of realized they screwed up some things. Or city council making it a crime if I touch somebody's diaphragm. And cops in New York City are going, I don't know what I'm allowed to do anymore. So I'm a second generation cop. I have 4 kids. I don't want my kids to be a cop. And that is the saddest thing out there. But they go back to your question. There's reform to be done. There's training to be done. But if it is being done through anger and force, the way some of these movements are pushing, we're not bringing in both sides, the training and changes are going to bring nothing. What's going to happen? We saw it in New York City, right? Cops stopped working. And what happened? Murder rate skyrocketed instantly. I've never seen a crime rate go up so fast. Usually there's an uptick, a downtick. And, even when we got to the 2,300 homicides in the early 90s, it took years to get up to that level. This is just reform is there. We can talk about things, but also understand sometimes there's going to be things you're just going to see that you're not going to like. And sometimes police work is ugly, right? Me and Bill tackling a guy and taking him down, I ain't doing it politely, right? Once it's on, right? Kind of thing.
I've always said something, and I'm sorry, Kevin, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I've always said something. I've always told somebody, in a fight, you can't tell a person how long to kick your ass. You understand what I'm saying? You can't tell them how to kick your ass. And people fail to realize that. And I'm talking about from just a person and a law enforcement. If you swing at me, you can't tell me, I've stopped, and that's what's happening with a lot of corrections. I got to get some of my correction people on too, because a lot of officers spit in your face and do all kind of things, and then run and go put their hands against the wall and say, I don't want to be touched. You think if you spit in my face, you're going to just run and touch the wall and it's saying it's going to be all right? I don't know any human being that's going to tolerate that. You understand what I'm saying? So now you're asking me just because I'm working to be a better person. Go ahead, Carla. You seem like you wanted to say something. Okay.
No, I was just going to say, but I think that's where a lot of these interactions between citizens and police, the factor comes in that you, the police officer, is supposed to be the professional, that you're supposed to be the experienced person in a situation. This is your job. And a part of that job should be in how you approach this citizen that may be committing a crime, or that may be belligerent, or may be aggressive towards you. And we, I think as citizens, we're thinking, why are you not using tactics that as a professional would seem to result in better outcomes with the situations that you're having, such as de-escalation? Or why does everything, these encounters have to go from 0 to 60?
And let me just interject. You are so right what you're saying, because the bottom line is the way things you can teach somebody how to de-escalate something, but if it's not in their innate in their personality and their nature, it is not it. It's just like we all have worked with some people that have messed up personalities. And because you become a police officer doesn't mean your personality is going to change. If you're an asshole, you're going to stay an asshole when you put that uniform on. And you're going to do asinine things when you're working. If you're a person maybe like Kevin and myself, I mean, like everybody knows I'm a comedian. So I've been out there and snapped with cats, and been like, yo, bring your clown ass over here. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then dude be like, what? I be like, yo, I say, what's wrong with you, money? You know what I'm saying? Or Kevin be like, yo, dude, what are you doing? So de-escalation comes with that. Like, I'm a people's person. I'm a
Right.
communicator. So my skill set has the battle with my mouth. You understand what I'm saying? And even let me tell you something. I can just tell you a real quick thing. One time, I knew this guy was going to run. I was working with Brent Scarazzini, Kev, when he took over the SNU sergeant. We knew this cat was going to run. So I'm like, yo, I am not chasing this dude around no corner. So I came out and I was like, yo, my man. I put the radio to my ear and I'm looking around. Now he's looking at me. He's ready to take flight because he just sees police and he knows he's out there pitching. So I'm like, yo, did you hear a woman scream? So he's like, nah. And he was talking to a lady. I was like, yo, somebody screamed. Y'all didn't hear it? So I got out the car. Like, I'm not even thinking about this dude.
Right.
So I was like, yo, how y'all doing? Whatever. And then I got up and I said, yeah, nobody screaming. He's like, nah. I said, okay, well then, just put your hands behind your back. But I got him. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. The way I got hurt at work is a rookie sees a drug dealer and he's chasing him. He just comes, hits the corner, pops the corner. Dude takes off. I take flight. We get in the scuffle. So what I'm trying to say, tactically, that's who you are. Maybe that's who Kevin and I are. You understand? There are certain officers that I've worked, and that's all shout out to NYPD in the building. We've worked with a lot of great white officers, black officers, Spanish officers, and I've worked with a lot of messed up white, blacks, and Spanish officers too. You know what I'm saying? But and that's why you pick your partner. You know what I'm saying? You be like, I want to work with Kevin. Kevin's like, I want to work with Bill. I wanted to work with a John Cross. You know what I'm saying? I see Donnie Rolfe was in the building. Donnie Rolfe was an excellent sergeant I worked with. I loved him tactically. He would get down. Like, that's what you wanted to feel secure. The worst thing as an officer to do is work with somebody that you feel you're not secure. So going back to the question of training, and Lynette, and I think somebody else asked about this, I personally feel, especially because of being a martial artist, I feel people should learn hand-to-hand combat. Give them 6 months of just books and stuff, and then give them 3 months of hands-on-hand training. But what happened, and it happened in the academy, dude gets in there and he starts sparring and fighting, throws the shoulder out. Now the job is afraid of lawsuits and liabilities and all that kind of stuff. So it's like a catch-22. Do I think certain people are built for this job? Absolutely. Have I seen officers grow into this job? Absolutely too. But I think when a percentile, if I sat here and just talked about NYPD and Monday morning quarterbacking, the things that I've seen on TV, there is such a percentage of people that shouldn't even be in law enforcement. And that's facts. That's real talk. You know what I'm saying? Kev, you want to chime in real quick?
Yep. The other thing, Carl, is, you go into the 0 to 60 thing, and you're right. There are some cops who don't, and, we're going to go, right? Their attitude. The overwhelming majority, you got to understand, there are millions of interactions with the public every year. Most of them get de-escalated. There are thousands and tens of thousands of people we arrest with knives on the street, kind of thing, EDPs like that. And they get brought in without a bullet hole in them, right? The overwhelming majority. I know plenty of cops that might have grabbed a garbage can and came up beside the guy and slammed into him. I know cops who've gotten guys who's standing there, walked into a precinct with a gun and dove on the guy and tackled him, right? Like, there are plenty of those that actually happen. More of those happen than what you saw on the streets of Philly. Far more. Yeah. But we don't have that perspective. We talked a little bit before about, we only release the thing if it's a black guy that was shot. No, we release it for everybody who's shot. the police departments across the country are always going to release. We're going to give every bad thing that person's ever done, kind of thing. We do it. It has nothing to do with race. It's going to get released both. Yeah. There's less media attention when we shoot a white person. It just is. Billy and I have had this discussion a lot.
And we shoot more white.
We shoot more white. As cops, we shoot more white men every year than we shoot black men. We kill more white men than black men. Now, percentage-wise of how many people in the country, it's disparaging the other way. But statistically, just out-and-out numbers, we kill more white guys every year than black guys. You just don't see those videos.
And hold on, everybody. This is Real Talk Chronicles. We're going to close pretty soon. I just want to shout out Barry. I see you on YouTube. I apologize. You said this situation was controversial as far as how the law is written, how the officers are trained, and DPF used or justified. How it looks from the public viewpoint, it looks bad. What's so funny? You're totally right. I personally think an officer should be equipped with non-lethal alternatives to a domestic violence person. Let me tell you something. The one thing I'm going to say this that I know Kevin brought up, and then we're going to close out pretty soon. But Kevin said one thing about, like, say if we ran up across that man with a knife, right? And we picked up 2 garbage bins, them old metal garbage garbage cans, and put up the shield or something, and we hit him with that, right? Hypothetically, say we hit him with that. Okay, we didn't kill him. Today, that might have happened in 1993 and 4 with Kevin and I. If we did that today, the first thing they'll say, yo, it ain't about the fact that we didn't kill him. It's like, yo, look at it. They hitting them with garbage cans. What kind of policing is that? So, in fairness of law enforcement,
we'd be hitting him with a plastic garbage can that wouldn't do much.
Well, right, but back in the days, we would have clunked him with that garbage can. You understand what I'm saying? And it would have been all right because nobody been watching, nobody would have cared. But now today, everything is about, yo, you did it wrong. You did it wrong. And that's the problem right now what law enforcement is having, because there isn't no win with them. There is no win with law enforcement. And the one thing is, I've always said, all the time, I get all these calls and texts and people, anything with police shootings. Bill, how would you handle this? How would you handle this? And what it is? Did you think this was right? Did you think this was wrong? What did you think? What could have been done? And I always say certain things. I always say, well, let me ask you a question. If I shot somebody, what would you say? It was like, I feel he deserved it. Okay. I said, that's the only time when you kind of got to see what happens here first. Now, am I saying those officers tactically were right? No, I'm not. Am I saying that the shooting was justified by department standards? Yes. Do we see people of color, and Kevin and I go back and forth with this, do we see people of color getting shot in the lieu of, say, faster than we see other nationalities or unarmed people? I personally feel yes. Kevin may say no. Kevin says there's more white people shot, and they say statistically more white people have been shot by NYPD, but I don't see more white unarmed people being shot more than people of color. And I always tell him, let's go over that. Unarmed black and brown people getting shot and killed all the time.
Unarmed more white every year than black every year. You can go back for a decade. It's the Washington Post that keeps the stats.
You're talking volume, but I mean,
my whole point to that is,
but I'm just saying black people are 13% of the population.
Yeah, how many videos have you seen?
What percentage of that population?
I agree with that. My point of saying that is the media. There's a media bias in trying to stir up shit at times, I believe, and there's media bias in 2 directions. I'm going to go another direction with you on it, but. Nate, can you name one white guy you've seen on a video shot and killed by cops?
I can't, but I can't name all the black people either.
But you can name a handful of black people easily because you've seen them.
It's really interesting because we had a situation here in North Carolina where, and it was really interesting to me because it happened in Raleigh, major city, and it was a white gentleman. He was standing with his shotgun, and he was pointing at people driving by. And white officer came, took the shotgun from him, handcuffed him, and took him to jail. Now, I saw that, and I thought, man, if that dude was black, he was dead for real.
Absolutely.
But I can't, that's just my thought toward bias. But the fact that he did that is what really shocked me, because the guy had a shotgun. And the fact that he actually approached him, took that shotgun, and then apprehended him, to be honest with you, if the officer had shot that guy, I would have said I understood why he did it. but he didn't. And to me, it really made me think about the challenges, one, that you face, and why people are calling for so much reform, because you see unarmed black people with no weapons at all being shot and killed. And here this guy is with a shotgun being dismantled and put into a squad car. So I think that's where going back to the beginning thing, community and the police department trying to understand, especially in minority communities, either there's a communication gap that's breaking down, where either we're really understanding each other, or we're appearing more violent. We're appearing more violent in some way because of violence that's happening in the community. I think black people would want to see that same kind of police activity. Now, I don't know why that officer felt he could go to that guy, dismantle that shotgun from him, and lock him up. And here, two officers can't take a knife from Walter Wallace. I think that's I think it goes back to what you're both saying. One, the fear, that momentum that's happening, and then who's showing up at the time. It's that we're juggling. I think that everybody's struggling with for reform.
Look, I'm with you on the reform part, but you got to also realize there are a lot of black men who get arrested with guns, right? Who don't get shot. There was an incident a year ago in Bronx precinct where the guy walked into the precinct and started shooting at the desk. Lieutenant Sergeant. He was tackled. Not one bullet was fired back at him, right? Like, there are incidents. They do exist. But that's what I'm getting at. There are problems, and we need to address these problems. But we also have some media bias in this that are pushing some things. And I gave one example of, we don't see white guys who get shot, but they are. But media is biased in other directions. And Bill knows I push this one all the time. The media doesn't care about, little brown girls. Little white girl goes missing. Blonde hair, that's front page for weeks. A little blonde girl gets killed, that's front page for months. We don't care about the other side. And that's not me. I'm not the media. I care about everybody. But that's out there, right? Like, there are media things that there are things that sell. They think that sells, right? And we've talked about the girl in Central Park earlier, or she's a year ago now, I guess. That's Central Park, Morningside Park, who was killed all over the place. We go back to the Natalie Holiday in Aruba, who was killed 15, 20 years ago. That I still have her stupid head in my name. I shouldn't call her stupid. She's a poor kid who got killed. But, I'm sure there are plenty of brown girls who've gone on vacation and gotten killed. Nobody cared.
Trafficking and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So give you my quick background. Besides that, I'm retired from NYPD and I work for a law enforcement agency now. I also am a co-founder of an entity called the National Child Protection Task Force. And I donate a ton of time looking for missing kids, exploited kids, and trafficked kids. So, it's another, violent extremists is one end of what I do in law enforcement, but the kids is the other end. So this is something I am, very much involved in and passionate about. And we have it all screwed up in this country.
I like something that you said that I think is really important, because we do talk about police reform a lot. And I view defunding police as part of that reform, but you said media bias, and there should be discussion about reform in the area of media and how we communicate those who are being affected. And I think that will, in essence, also help the police department and how people perceive the work that's being done.
Yeah. One of the reforms Bill and I, talk about is having, after an incident, the police commissioner, the head of it, has got to bring in a couple of local politicians, a couple of community leaders who are trusted, and give them the inside view of what actually, happened and what's being done. Now they're not, there's things they'll be told they're not supposed to talk about publicly, but at least they can go back to the community and say, listen, the cops have something, they're doing this, they're fixing that, we're working on it. And there's a conversation. We all sit here in the dark after an incident going, well, Brianna's to me the epitome of it. We could sit here and debate this all day long of did the cop do his due diligence? Did he lie on his app? We should know all this. This didn't happen a week ago, right? Like, these are facts that should be out there. But police departments need to be a little more with the public, with having a couple of trusted people. And I've said this before, we'll get burnt once in a while. There'll be somebody in that inner circle who's going to go to the New York Times and give them an exclusive. So what? It happens. There's a cop that's going to give the New York Times an exclusive too and burn us. So, that's life. But I'd rather deal with that than having a public not know. And then people can easily stir the pot and change things and change, there were shootings and incidents where the narrative was completely wrong. And we can go back to, Officer O'Keefe and Kiko in Washington Heights 30 years ago to some other ones up to today, where if law enforcement would have been more open and the narrative would have changed early on, there'd be a lot less tension. And then there's going to be some where we're just effing wrong. And we got to be able to say it and take the kick, in our punishment. And the police commissioner may lose his job. But I'd rather lose my job, being honest with everybody and dealing with the consequences than the fallout afterwards and being embarrassed and humiliated out of office, because that's what eventually happens to these guys.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, I love talking to you all. This is Real Talk Chronicles, everybody. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my partner in crime, Kevin Ranzetti. We had Carla and we had Booker in the building with us tonight. I asked anybody, if you ever want to be on any of the shows, let me know in advance. You can always come and talk to Kevin and I. It is going on 2.5. It's always, the one thing I always try to get off early, but it never happens. And you know what? That's funny. I own that. Kevin, I know exactly. But you know what? I own that, because good conversation goes fast and you don't mind talking. So, especially with Real Talk, especially, and then you had two wonderful panelists like yourselves, Carla and Booker, that brought so much insight and inquisitive and asked questions and gave us thought-provocative stuff that we can think back and helps us become better analysts when we talk about law enforcement. You understand what I'm saying? Because the beautiful thing about it is, like Kevin has always said, you got to sit down at the table and have conversations. If you're not willing to converse with anybody, then why do this? You understand what I'm saying? And the whole thing about Real Talk is to be able to give people, anybody, an avenue to express themselves and talk about things and get firsthand knowledge. I try not to bring on people that are not going to give you a one-sided answers. Nobody wants a one-sided answer. You wanted to be able to have dialogue. And that's why I appreciate Kevin so much for doing that with me. And I appreciate you two for definitely coming on and kicking it, because, like I said, you asked the tough questions. So you got to make us think. If the questions were easy, then why would we be talking? You know what I'm saying? So, Booker and Carla, I appreciate you. And I'm going to ask you two to, before you get off, Kevin knows I always do this. Just give the people out there something nice to think about, even if it's this election or whatever you say going forward until the next time you two come back on the show. And you're always welcome back. You're always welcome back. Just let us know when you want to come back. Just give some people some positive affirmation, something to say. Go ahead, Booker, then Carla, and then Kevin will finish up.
Yeah. Just talking with you guys tonight, I would tell people to have the conversation. I think the conversation has got to happen. I think we started off talking about, do we think this nation will heal? And I think this is one way that the nation is going to heal. That's why I really like this platform. And just to be here talking with both of you, two law enforcement officers. I've always respected law enforcement officers. I've always recognized their jobs as being extremely difficult and very dangerous jobs. And I think that conversation has been missing in the communities. And I think that that doing this and from this forum and maybe even from broader forums, I think will help the community start that healing process. So I would tell people, have the conversation, get involved, get in there and have this conversation. I'm glad I did today. This was very helpful.
Appreciate Carla.
I just wanted to thank you, Bill, and also especially you, Kevin, for your candor.
Yes.
In giving your opinions, and then of course, answering our questions that we had. I have law enforcement in my family, but you always want to kind of know what the other side is thinking. And you guys gave us some really good insight just into things that we wouldn't know, as far as what's like procedures that police are following. And just with the case of Wallace here in Philadelphia, it actually does expand the picture for me a lot, as to, what might have been going through the minds of those police officers. And maybe I, skipped over it in some of the articles I read, but I don't think I realized that those two officers were rookie officers, only a week or two on the job. And I think that's huge in kind of viewing their actions. So, I just really appreciate, Kevin, that you were, willing to, give us that information and answer our questions about that. I appreciated having that information. And I think it's good. That just shows that, no matter what our viewpoints, no matter what opinions we have on things, that you really do need to have a 360 view of a situation. You really need to understand the multiple viewpoints, the multiple sides of what's going on. You can't just go off and running with, just this one look of any situation, whether we're talking about the political situation right now. Kevin, you are a self-proclaimed Republican, but not a Trumper. It's good to, I don't have a problem with discussing anything with somebody who's on, the opposite political divide from me. I think it's good to, have different viewpoints and to think about, what that other person's view is and how it affects their life and why they, have views like that. And we're not too, you realize when you talk to different people that we're not that far apart. There's things Absolutely. That, we disagree on. But most people, everybody wants to kind of have a decent life, and, they want people to be treated fairly. And they want people to be treated with respect and dignity, no matter what your viewpoints are. So I just think having this conversation with just even us today just kind of shows that, we can have a healthy discussion, and there doesn't have to be any acrimony and any anger. And it could just be, a good discussion about, hey, your viewpoint, my viewpoint, type of thing. So this was a great talk tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Kev, want to close us out?
Carla, Booker, thank you. It was a pleasure. I enjoy these nights, right? And Bill, we laugh because 2.5 hours disappears.
I know.
And we can easily do 2 more, right? There's no ifs or buts. And I look forward to the day, Bill, when we can actually break bread and do this sitting down together,
yes.
kind of
yes.
thing. I unfortunately, I think we're a long way away from it, but we'll get there. Everybody take a deep breath.
Yeah.
I did it intentionally yesterday. I watched nothing, and it changed nothing. If I would have watched the news all day yesterday, what would have changed?
Right.
My blood pressure, your blood pressure. Take a break. You can't change these numbers. What is going to come out is going to come out, and we'll figure it out after it does. So take a day off. Tomorrow's a beautiful day if you're living in the New York area. Get outside. Go do something with your kids. Go take a movie. Stream something on Netflix. And binge it. Get off social media for a day. You know, there are days I completely shut down.
Yeah.
You know, and there were times where I would because things just, you know, like I want to comment and get back at them. And there are a couple people, and Bill knows, there's a couple people I like to really, you know, dig it with, and I've stopped. I just, this kind of stuff changes things. We can talk. I will talk to anybody. But for the bigger picture, for those of you who have a say in this world, who know somebody who's in politics, who runs a city council, who runs a police department, we need to change, but we need to change properly with each other.
Yeah.
And if you ain't doing it that way, you're just part of the problem. I don't care what change you're creating and whose side you're on.
Absolutely.
You know? We all want safety and respect. Carla, you said it too, and I use that all the time. We all want respect is the biggest one. We want safety, but respect is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
You know, if we ain't respecting each other, what's the point? So
Awesome.
again, thank you two. I appreciate you both.
Thank you. Well, everybody, this
you.
is the segment. It's a Wednesday in Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my partner in crime, Kevin Branzetti, my co-host. And this segment is, you know, we talk about law enforcement, but also, of course, we talk about anything else, real talk. I have to thank my wonderful panel. Thank you, Booker Haas, and thank you, Carla Anderson. I appreciate you all for your insight again. And everybody out there, I appreciate you all for chiming in. Love the comments. You know, Kevin will go back to you and answer. Carla and Booker, you both, you know, your Facebook friends, so you can go back. There are people applauding with your comments and questions. They agreed with you on certain things and stuff like that. Shout out to everybody, my 28 family, my former law enforcement family. I saw you, Al Frierson, in the building. Shout out to my NYPD family. Shout out to my martial arts family. Thank you for coming in too. Thank you just for the Jane Does and the John Does. Everybody, appreciate you. This is Real Talk Chronicles. If you like it, share it, subscribe to it on YouTube. Let the word go out. I plan on being here way after this pandemic, hopefully trying to being informative and you know, bringing information to you. So everybody out there, you know, we'll see you Monday. Monday I'll be probably solo unless I'll have somebody on. Tuesday, I wonder if Malika's coming back with her segment of young independent entrepreneurs starting their business. I'll have to find out. Wednesday, I'll be back with Kevin unless Kevin has something to do with the kids. He's always here with me every Wednesday. I think next week, Allison Williams will be with me. You know, Real Talk with Allison Williams. We'll be talking about lupus and things of that magnitude. So please chime in and listen and spread the word. Appreciate you. So we going out here. I'm going out on this song right here from my man Slide the Family Stone. It's a family affair, and I wish you all a good evening. And this is it. You know what I'm saying? This is how we going out. Yeah. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. Thank you. See you soon, man. All right. Yeah, there you go, Carla. Yeah. Yeah. What is it? All right, everybody. Yeah.
All right.
See you soon. All right.